On August 22nd, I got a text from Gabby.
Late on the night of August 22nd, Gabby told Jackson, her ex-boyfriend, that she would only be alone until tomorrow, presumably the 23rd, and thus would only be free to talk to Jackson until then. Netflix made a perfect first episode in their three-part series, but I thought they could have done a better job here, providing context and locking these insights into the established timeline. When Gabby reached out to her ex, firstly, it was 10 days after the Moab incident. Secondly, it was during a period when she first got the chance to work, unfettered, uninterrupted, on her first YouTube video, which was posted on August 19th, 3 days before she reached out to Jackson. Thirdly, she reached out to Jackson while she was staying alone at a hotel in Salt Lake City. Brian flew back on the 23rd and probably stayed with Gabby at the hotel that night before checking out and resuming their trip on the morning of August 24th. Gabby would be dead just 3 days later on August 27th, and her body would only be found more than 3 weeks after that, on September 19th, 2021.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Welcome to the second episode in our review of this series on Gabby Petito on Netflix.
I got the vibe that she may have still needed somebody to talk to after we hung up. So I was like, hey, if you do need to talk again, let me know. It's okay.
And actually, Gabby did take Jackson up on that offer. She did call him. Unfortunately, when she did, he didn't answer because he was at work. And if she had answered, that would have been the last time that he spoke to her. Now, we can see just how dangerous things were getting for Gabby, can't we? Very likely, 3 things happened in the week when Gabby and Brian were separated, less than a week after the Moab incident, which was between August 17th and August 23rd. That was the time that she was in this hotel in Salt Lake City. So for starters, Gabby had a break from Brian and was able to work at last without him guilting her, interrupting her, or distracting her. And she probably felt a sense of achievement that at last she had put all the footage together, she'd published her first video, and it was quite a good effort. In other words, her experience of the mini break was probably that she needed it, wanted it, and liked it. And further, the reality was sinking in that her and Brian weren't working. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brian had the opposite feeling, that he missed Gabby and was rightly feeling the heebie-jeebies about her, feeling insecure that she was slipping away. And of course she was. And then the third aspect is, while editing, Gabby may have realized, going through the footage, that Brian wasn't a very good actor for her social media anyway. He didn't want to be part of it, and so maybe it was better if he wasn't.
She like kind of hinted at the fact that they had kind of gotten in an argument a little bit. She's like, I have a plan. I think I want to leave him.
In this analysis, which deals with 3 what the ifs from episode 2, we are going to deal with that plan, Gabby's plan to leave Brian. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, we're going to be continuing this analysis with a sort of glossing over a review of episode 3. So look out for that. After that, we're going to sort of go through all 3 episodes much slower, kind of with a fine-tooth comb, and do deep dives about certain areas of the Netflix series. If you're finding this analysis incisive, a quality study of the facts at hand, please do share, let other people know about it. Please leave a comment, and if it's really meaningful to you, please hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Now, we know they got into an argument more than a little bit on August 12th. So when Jackson talks about, they got into a little bit of an argument, it could have been a reference to the one on August 12th, the one that led to the Moab incident. And I mean, that wasn't just any little argument. It was a physical altercation that led to someone in the public actually calling 911. And I do think one of the first things the cops found when they stopped the Ford Transit was Gabby in tears. Not Brian in tears, Gabby in tears. And of course the 911 report was that a guy had slapped a girl, not the other way around. By the way, I believe I misspoke in the last video where I said Gabby's mother knew the police were called during the Moab stop. I think Gabby selectively actually left that part out. Of course, months later, years later, a selfie Gabby took would emerge of Gabby's tear-streaked face. It's a really horrible picture. It was taken that day, August 12th, with blood on it, especially around her one eye. And I think if Gabby had showed them that photo, and I think if she had told them that Brian had struck her, things would have been instantly very, very different. In this analysis, I want to highlight 3 extraordinary what the ifs from episode 2 of American Murder, Gabby Petito, and it's dealing with how Gabby was going to leave Brian. It's pretty incredible. Number 1, the van life adventure was Jackson and Gabby's idea. Did you guys know that?
That was something that we spoke about wanting to do together, buying a van and traveling the country.
So, heck, wow, not even the van life adventure was Brian's idea. What was Brian's idea? Brian's idea seemed to be being barefoot, climbing trees, camping and smoking dope, and basically just hanging around Gabby. He didn't seem to have a work ethic bone in his body, whereas Gabby did have a work ethic, and this seemed to be what rubbed the two the wrong way. Her working and him not working, and him not wanting her to work. And you notice on Netflix, they provide this timestamp 7 days after the Moab incident. Gabby posts her van life video on YouTube. Well, is it any coincidence that she does this when Brian's completely out of the picture? And she probably realizes he needs to not be there in order for her to be able to work, to focus on work, to dedicate herself. And if you gloss over the timeline, you'll also notice as soon as Gabby starts working, that's when all the shit happens. She works on a website. That same day, Moab happens. She posts a video on YouTube. She's murdered literally a week later. And I mean, work is a way that Gabby sort of shows who she is, what she wants to do. It's a way she sort of, in a way, asserts her identity and her independence. Brian doesn't like any of that. Now, another odd thing, if not creepy, is that besides the van life thing not being Brian's idea, the van isn't even registered in Brian's name. And besides that, Brian starts to look like Jackson in some of the photos. Number 2, Gabby told Brian she wanted to camp apart. That was on August 27th. Now, although Netflix doesn't provide timestamps, it's implied that on the night of her murder, Gabby sent her mother this text about Brian. She texted, "I'm fine. I convinced Brian to go camp out in the woods so I can have the van to myself. It's what he wants to do anyway. I don't care. He said I could have the van if I paid him." Now, it does cross my mind, could these be staged texts? Because there are other staged texts. Well, we'll come back and deal with this. But she basically asked Brian to go somewhere else, and at the same time says she doesn't care, that he wants to anyway, and that Brian accepted a deal. She could have the van if she paid him. By the way, when I covered this case, I always said that both Brian and Gabby shared ownership of the van, even if it was registered to Gabby, and some wise asses told me what an idiot I was and how little I knew about this case. Well, here it is in Gabby's own words. Brian was prepared to cede his share of the van if Gabby paid him, and it does make sense that if they both wanted to do this, that they would probably pool their money and together purchase this van. Perhaps one of them paying a little bit more than the other. Anyway, this transaction, certainly the idea of it, was a sign of the death knell of Brian's role in the van life adventure, and I think he realized it. It's no surprise that Gabby's mother then asked the obvious question, are you guys breaking up? Number 3, Gabby told Brian she wanted to go solo as a social media creator. That was also on August 27th. And I think by saying solo female in her text, she was effectively telling her fiancé that she wanted to present herself online as single, and by asking him if she could buy her full share of the van back, well, didn't this seem to indicate that she meant to be single offline as well? It was effectively calling off their engagement. And this is the text she sent to her mother, Nicole. It's a text we've never seen before. She wrote, "No, I just said," that's to Brian, "I could make more money as a solo female van lifer. I'm driving to a campsite now." In her text, there doesn't seem to be any sign of fear, anxiety, or animus in Gabby's text, and that emoticon seems to indicate that she's kind of relaxed with what is going on. And that's despite footage of the pair at the Whole Foods market recorded earlier that same day, which is actually the last proof of life of Gabby. That's aside from these texts. I mean, that footage is fraught with animus. Brian looks really upset, angry. Gabby looks guarded. She's got her arms folded. At one point, Brian even slams the van door shut when he parks it. Now, we also know the two had some sort of argument or confrontation at the Merry Piglets as well. Certainly not a happy meal when they were there. That was also pretty much on the last day. Now, what inferences do we draw from this information? Well, what is incredible, what's astonishing, is that Gabby's strategy to leave Brian seemed to be to simply tell him. I mean, that's what saying she wanted to be a solo traveler amounted to. And I don't blame her for wanting to sleep alone that night, given the events of that day. But clearly, Brian did. Brian did blame her. And Brian was obviously realizing she's showing her intentions. She's deciding his fate, and he didn't like it. Did she tell him where she was going in terms of where she was going to camp? Or did he guess where she was? Either way, on the night the two separated, and remember it was something Gabby asked for, not Brian, on a night the two were together but actually slept apart, that's when Brian made his murderous move. Netflix makes a pretty feeble effort to dramatize these scenes in episode 2, and of course no one was there. We can't know exactly what happened, but they try and show someone walking with bare feet on a dirt road at night and a van door being pulled shut. It does make one wonder, was Gabby actually murdered in the van, and was the door being closed, as someone saw, as someone recorded on camera? Was that an effort to hide that fact and to hide what was inside? What do you think? I'm not going to take it further than that. In our next analysis, we'll focus on episode 3. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.